You know what's making me lose my mind now? The people who hate borax. What do you know about borax? Nothing. Then maybe it might be a good idea to leave it to the people who maybe know something about the science. Ask some questions. Wikipedia, you go through all the natural sources of it, where it comes from, and all the things it can be used for. Now everything is borax is bad. Where did that come from? How did borax get to be bad? Well, borax got to be bad because of an irresponsible article that came out on television. I'll let you figure out who said this. Of a mom who allowed her kid to make as much slime as she wanted to for a 3-month period of time. This kid was soaking in borax and water, making slime, having fun. Well, what happened? Her hands got irritated. Skin got irritated. You'd think that that would make some sense. No, we're gonna let our kid continue to play until you take her to the hospital, claim that there's burns on your hand, and now all of a sudden you can't use borax.
Boric acid in the concentrations that I talk about and use in other insect-killing videos on my channel are minuscule compared to the amounts that they rumor to be deadly. Common sense says you're pretty safe. An analysis from an independent testing firm, Chemical Regulatory Consulting, states, quote, boric acid is only poisonous if taken internally or inhaled in large quantities.
Healthline and WebMD also state concerns about borax as a hormone disruptor, stating a few different animal studies that showed a negative effect on male reproductive organs and damage to fetal development. The only problem is, we couldn't actually find any of these studies they've referenced. There seems to be more evidence of boric acid as a hormone disruptor. What is the difference between borax and boric acid? These two substances are similar, but not the same thing. Boric acid is made by dissolving borax into boiling water and adding an acid, such as hydrochloric acid, then allowing it to cool. Once the solution cools, boric acid crystals form. Hydrochloric acid is a strong acid and can be toxic in high concentrations. Boric acid, on the other hand, is a weak acid and is generally considered to be less toxic than hydrochloric acid. Borax, which is a salt of boric acid, has even lower toxicity than boric acid. Borax is less toxic than ordinary table salt.
Borax is sodium tetraborate, right? So it's a form of salt. And basically, the salt is very detoxing for the body, or it can detox the body very well. It's great at pulling out fluoride. It's great at helping to reverse arthritis, osteoporosis, inflammation, pain. And when we go into this topic, for anybody who wants to do research on borax, you can go to the earthclinic.org, right? And on the earthclinic.org, they have all these borax protocols in which people can look into. They also have all the benefits, they have all the stories, and I'm going to talk about the story today, which is called the Borax Conspiracy. And it's a document that was published in the 80s. And what happened was during the 1980s, there was a guy who basically realized a lot of people were suffering from osteoporosis, arthritis, and all this pain and inflammation, right? And they were suffering from that because there was so much fluoride in the water. So the leading cause of people, for example, when they get over 65 and they start developing arthritis, osteoporosis, all of these things, they're building up fluoride in their body, and their body starts to get fluoridosis. When they start to develop fluoridosis, right, their bones become brittle and they start to basically almost fall apart. So if that person, for example, takes a fall at the age of, let's say, 65, 66, 67, they are more likely to break a bone or break a hip or break something because they have the fluoridosis going on in their bones.
I'm a board-certified neurosurgeon. I retired from active practice. Now I do primarily research in neurosciences. There's no modern evidence whatsoever that fluoridating water reduces cavities at all. So you have to ask the question, well, why are you still fluoridating water? Now, not only does that produce lethargy, apathy, weakness, tiredness in adults, but if you do it in pregnant women, the babies are born with low IQs and they never recover.
We're developing a society because of all of these different toxins known to affect brain function. We're seeing a society that not only has a lot more people of lower IQ, but a lot fewer people of higher IQ. In other words, a dumbing down, a chemical dumbing down of society. So everyone's sort of mediocre. That leaves them dependent on government.
We've got some rather profound problems with fluoridation that are now well documented from laboratories all over the world without any question. For instance, one of them Dr. Varner did out of Europe, in which he looked at 0.5 parts per million, which is half of what's put in water, and found significant death of neurons in the brain and damage to the blood vessels that supply blood to the brain.
Spell psychiatrist. You trying to find Google? TV, no.
Yet we have a government that is still pushing as hard as they can, using taxpayer money, to get all the water supply in the United States fluoridated. Fluoride reduces reproduction. It influences sperm mobility. When all these things are known and in the scientific literature and peer-reviewed journals, why is the public being kept in the dark? There's only two choices you have in this debate. Either they're incredibly stupid and incompetent or criminal, or they're doing it on purpose for a reason, which goes back to the Rockefeller design of human engineering. Oh yes, we may harm a lot of people, we may kill some babies, we may create some new diseases, we may wipe out whole populations at a time, but that's the price we have to pay to create the new vision, the new society.
We have these people of lower IQ who are totally dependent. Then we have this mass of people who are going to believe anything they're told because they can't really think clearly. And very few people of very high IQ who have good cognitive function who can figure this all out. And that's what they want. So, you can kind of piece it together as to why they are so insistent in spending so many hundreds of millions of dollars of propaganda money to dumb down society.
They introduced a lot of fluoride. They add it to the drinking water and they add it to toothpaste, believing that it somehow helps to strengthen teeth. And there was like one study early on that said it does strengthen teeth, but then there's been hundreds of studies that try to duplicate and try to find out for sure, and there's never been any conclusive evidence. There's several that indicate there are some side effects, some detrimental effects. Well, fluoride is in the family of halogens. It's on the right side of the periodic table, and it's in the same family as chlorine, bromine, and iodine. So while iodine is a nutrient necessary for the thyroid to make thyroid hormone, the other three are neurotoxins. They are not nutrients. They have never been shown to have any essential function in the body. No metabolic pathway ever has been found to depend on the first three. Therefore, they are poisons. And because they look the same though, they have a tendency to displace iodine from the thyroid and make the thyroid more toxic.
Now, back to borax.
The salt is very detoxing for the body, or it can detox the body very well. So what he determined was that if a person was consuming a small amount of borax, right, that their arthritis and osteoporosis would begin to reverse. So he noticed that when he was doing this, he basically gave it out to a bunch of people and said, here, just try this, tell me what you think. And it was just salt. He started giving this out to people. People started blowing him up on the phone and saying, I need more of this, I feel good, where did you get this, things like that. And what started to happen was he decided, I'm going to make a business out of this because I want to be able to help people with borax. And this guy was in Australia. So this is important to remember. This is in Australia. And Australia is facing a lot of things with supplements and vitamins being banned and things like that. So this all relates. So this is in the 1980s. And so he decides to put this into a capsule form. And he calls up a company and says, I would like to capsulate borax and I would like to be able to give it out to people. And they never heard of this at that time. The companies were actually very confused in which he reached out to. But as he reached out to them, he basically said, well, the reason I want to do this is because I learned that it's very healing for osteoporosis, arthritis, and anything related to inflammation, right? So those three things. So as he basically presented this to these companies, all of a sudden, within about a month's time of him trying to do this, all of a sudden, all of his work was pretty much removed. He was fined, I think, like $50,000 or $100,000, and I believe he was put in jail. And all of the information related to the borax and the borax conspiracy document, this has all the information, but basically it was instantaneously removed, right? Because when you think of these pill pushers, right? The people who push the poisons, and that's what we're going to call them. So the pill pushers. So when we think of those people, right, they're making lots of money on people who hit over the age of 65, right? They make a lot of money on this demographic, 65 to 100. That's where a lot of their money comes in. That would ruin their profits. This was about 3 months after he proposed the borax into capsules. 3 months later, all of a sudden borax was banned in 30 countries. They said it's not safe, it's dangerous, we should not be messing around with things like this. And all of a sudden, just like this, borax was completely removed from 30 countries because it competed with the people who were selling the poison. What's also interesting is borax is the counter towards fluoride, right? So with all this fluoride, which is a neurotoxin that's being placed into the public water supply and into foods and things like that, borax is the counter, right? If a pinch of borax is placed into the water, it counteracts the fluoride that's placed into the water. And yes, as somebody just said, it's sold as laundry detergent because it's a salt, right? Before Before laundry detergents and all these poisonous soaps that they would sell, right, they would use borax to clean everything because it's a form of salt. Similar to when they used to use baking soda, right? Baking soda was used to clean everything as well because of the pH, right? It's alkaline. So they would use boric acid at the time to help preserve their food, right? So now what's interesting is in about the 1930s, 1940s, right, you have after World War I, which was the reset, number the first one. So after World War I, you have citric acid start to become the new preservative. Citric acid is derived from a GMO mold. If a person has a mold allergy and consumes citric acid, it will make them worse. Now you have citric acid being used instead, which is toxic, hurts the skin, messes up the body, right? Vitamin C packets. They push them to help you not get sick while actually making you sick. Yes, so those little C packets, all of those contain citric acid. They also usually contain soy lecithin. They also contain natural flavors. They also contain a bunch of minerals and vitamins in which the body can't absorb. So they can actually wreak havoc on our health. So do you see this? They do this flip. You know, you're trying to go to get something to boost your body, but in reality, the best option, if you ever are feeling down, just get some lemons, limes, some oranges, make sure they're organic, and just simmer the skin, and you'll get all the vitamin C that you need in a tea. Simple salt, right? It's always the flip side. We've been told, you know, the salt is dangerous. Well, the salt is dangerous because it's table salt. It's loaded with fluoride. It has heavy metals. It has aluminum. It has all these toxins. But sea salt, Celtic sea salt, Himalayan crystal salt, right? Different types of beautiful salts are actually very beneficial, right? And for example, somebody just said you can protest with your dollar starting this moment. If you haven't, it's exactly true that the world is realizing how much power they have. And remember, these people, any person who's in office, they are a public person, right? They are working for the people. So if you don't like them too, they can get rid of them as well too, because they're a public official. They're supposed to be working for the public. So same thing. If you don't like that, don't support them either. Another way is, as Harris just said, best way to protest is stop buying and supporting bad companies. And also, if we add another one into that, buy some land. Buy some land, even if it's an acre, even if it's a half an acre, even if it's just a little plot of land. Start growing your own food. Do something with it. Create your own little community. Get friends and family together to buy land and create communities too. That does a lot too, right? Because if people aren't dependent on grocery stores and all of the other nonsense, right, then they can't control anybody, right? And as somebody was saying down here, Target, Starbucks, Maybelline, Bud Light, all of them stop. Exactly. And the thing is, okay, let's just take it right back to what I was talking about, the citric acid and the preservatives and the chemicals. All of those companies as well on that side, which are doing all of the things that they're doing, are also poisoning the people, right? There's a lot of poison in these companies. If you take your hard-earned money that you've taken, and now you go and support a company which is poisoning you, you're just poisoning yourself. So be aware of that. You know, if you support small farmers, if you support the organic movement, if you support growing your own food, if you support all of these things, then all of a sudden everything has to change. Go to the company that you're looking and look if they have BlackRock or Vanguard as a investor. That's the easiest way to see it. If any of those two companies are investing into that company is bought out, right? And as somebody just said down below, they want you to register your garden. Yeah, I'll be right on that. Yes, they want you to register your food to the system so that they can basically control your food and then know how much food you have and things like that. Let's just take it one step further. 15-minute smart cities. Look into a 15-minute smart city and how it's set up. That is where they want to move people into. But the more people become on the land, growing their own food, independent, trading, and going back into things that we used to do, 15-minute smart cities don't work. You just say no. That's it. Just saying no makes a big difference. Same with 2020. They try to push things onto you, you know, and all the stuff where they were like, oh, you need to wear this and do this. No, I'm not doing it. Number one. Number two, it's against my health. Number three, I'm not going to support it. And those companies which push the narrative will not survive. They could create the city, but that doesn't mean that people will go to those cities, right? That's another reason when you get into why they want to take away the ability for people to defend themselves, right? And we won't even say what that is, that if we look at 2020 and 2021 and all of this, how did any of that, right? Because we got so many comments going on now, how did any of that benefit society? I'm still thinking about it. The plastic barriers, the plastic in the ocean, the plastic cover-ups which are now in the ocean and the whales are probably eating them and things like that. How did any of those things benefit society? And especially if we're going to take it one step further, if you read the book The Contagion Myth by Dr. Tom Cowan, it changes your whole world on everything. Because When in reality, I've realized it's not germs jumping all over, it's technology. And technology and these things are on a whole nother level. But that's when I'll leave it on. You have the book, The Contagion Myth by Dr. Tom Cowan, one of the best books you'll ever read, and The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Fistenberg. Those two books will change your life forever. And they changed mine and made me realize what's actually going on versus what's being told.